In kind of a weird turn of events over the weekend, President Trump is now threatening to take away the Washington Commanders' D.C. stadium deal if they do not change their team name back to the Washington Redskins. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we're going to be talking about the Commanders' name controversy and how that ties into the D.C. stadium deal with the team. But before we get into all that today, most of our coverage this week, I promise, will not be surrounding this topic. It will be surrounding Commanders training camp, which officially begins on Wednesday. Practices begin on Wednesday morning, and we're going to have extensive coverage all throughout the week here on Commanders training camp. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Tomorrow, Dan Quinn, the head coach, does take the podium for his pre-practice and pre-training camp press conference. We'll have the latest from Coach Q tomorrow on this channel, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button for the very latest. All right, so let's get into kind of the weird news over the weekend here, where President Trump threatened to kill Washington's new stadium deal in the city of Washington, D.C. if they don't go back to the Redskins name to be their official team mascot. This is what Donald Trump had to put on his Truth Social account over the weekend. The Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. But the president wasn't done there. He once again took to Truth Social a couple hours later and said this regarding the Commanders stadium deal being tied to the name. My statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. So coming up here, guys, I'm going to share my thoughts on this, share my thoughts on the name controversy, what this could potentially mean for the stadium deal at the RFK site, and more. But before we get into all that, I want to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics, where you guys can get a 50% off Washington Commanders hoodie today by going to chatsports.com/WAS hoodie. I really like the design of this hoodie, guys. It's got that nice burgundy, you got all the patches there on the sleeve, and then you've got the Washington Commanders logo on the chest. This can be your brand new lucky sweatshirt during the year this year as you cheer on the Commanders as they look to get yet another Super Bowl championship for this franchise. Plus, it's 50% off today. Plus, it helps out the channel because every time you use our link, chatsports.com/WAS hoodie, and you make a purchase, we get part of the proceeds here at the Commanders Report. So if you want to help us out today, you can go chatsports.com/WAS hoodie to get this hoodie 50% off today. So the first thing that I want to say when it comes to changing the name immediately, as the president suggests, is that they can't do that. They're too far along now in the league year process. Of course, training camp starts this week. It's not like they can go back to the Redskins logo and name right before the start of the season. There's just too much that has been going on here, and there's too much of a moving train to move that and change that at this point in time. Now, they could theoretically move it and change it next offseason if they wanted to, and I do understand both sides of the argument here. I understand why some people want to go back to the old logo and name, but I also understand why people feel like that we shouldn't go backwards in time and go back to that old logo and name. And the reason why some people think that it should come back is because there was a 2016 poll from the Washington Post that said that 90% of Native Americans were not offended by the name or the logo. In fact, most of them said they actually liked it. Even the family of the Blackfoot Chief on the logo wants it back. They've been trying to go into the U.S. Congress and trying to get this logo back into kind of the team's sphere, and they want it to return, and they're very proud of this logo. And the Commanders have even struck up a deal with the U.S. Congress here to help the RFK deal along, where they're now allowed to use the old logo in merchandise and use the old logo on team social media and stuff like that, which I think is a very good step in the right direction. However, I really do doubt that Josh Harris is going to change the name back to Redskins at at this point. First of all, there was a poll back in 2020. I showed you a poll in 2016, but then there was a poll done in 2020 when the controversy was really going crazy and when the team eventually changed the name to Washington Football Team, where 49% of Native Americans found the name offensive or very offensive. So that was kind of a big shift from 2016 to 2020 that kind of led to Dan Snyder at the time changing the name of the team. And it also seems like winning here in Washington with the Washington Commanders moniker has changed public opinion in polling over just the last year. Back in 2024, they did a fan poll where 36% of fans liked or loved the name Washington Commanders. Obviously, that's less than a majority. But then after last season's success with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and this team starting to have some success, 62% of fans said they liked or loved the name. And if this team can win a Super Bowl under the Commanders moniker, if they continue this success under Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn, and the longer we get away from Washington Football Team and Washington Redskins and people get more used to the Commanders moniker, I think that this name is going to stick a bit more, which is why owner Josh Harris has been very clear that they're sticking with the name. And I really don't think President Trump's threats are going to get Josh Harris to change the name either this year, because obviously he can't do it this year, or even in future seasons. This is what Josh Harris had to say about the name earlier this offseason. I think it's now being embraced by our team, by our culture, by our coaching staff. So we're going with that. Now, in this building, the name Commanders means something. It's about players who love football, are great at football, hit hard, mentally tough, great teammates. Now, listen, guys, I really hope that, President Trump is bluffing here and he's not actually going to blow up this deal over the team name in Washington, because I really like the stadium design that they have at the RFK site. I really like the fact that it is in Washington, D.C., and it has that view of the National Mall in the background. I think that would be an excellent location for this team. It would be a great thing for this team to return to the location where they won all their Super Bowls and had those glory days in this organization. But with that said, I do think that if push comes to shove and President Trump really does force the Commanders' hand here, I think the Commanders would rather build a new stadium elsewhere, whether that be in Virginia or Maryland, somewhere outside the purview of the President of the United States, rather than go back to the old team name and logo just because of the controversy around it. And obviously this team doesn't want to have to deal with that in the future. But that doesn't mean you can't honor the past. I want to make that abundantly clear. Like I'm loving the fact that this team is embracing, the old uniform style of uniforms with their new alternate uniforms. I think that they're going to go to something closer to this with their full-time uniforms in the future, because I think that these uniforms that they're going to be wearing 3 times this year, by the way, are going to be an absolute hit with the fan base. And I think that, in the future, their full-time uniforms are going to look something like this, something similar to the old uniforms that the Redskins wore all those years back. And then I also think that the team should implore, embracing Native American culture. I think it's a good thing to want to embrace that culture and, really raise that up and bring awareness to Native American issues and stuff like that. And, as long as you're not using what many people right now consider to be a racial slur as the team name, you can still embrace a lot of Native elements to your team culture and your team branding that I think would be a good thing for this organization moving forward if you want to do that. So what do you guys prefer? Let me know down there in the comments section. Do you want to keep Washington Commanders? Do you want to go back to Washington Redskins? Or do you want something else? Do you want to do something maybe a little bit closer to Indian culture, like maybe Washington Warriors, Washington Braves, something like that? Or do you want maybe something completely different entirely? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. Again, we're going to have extensive Commanders training camp coverage for you guys all throughout the week, starting with Dan Quinn's pre-training camp press conference tomorrow. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, go raise some hail.